I stared at Melissa across the dinner table too long. Too long because suddenly I felt exposed, like somehow she could already see through the fantasy I was desperately trying to protect. Candles flickered softly between us. People laughed somewhere behind me, wine glasses clinked. Normal life kept moving around me while my entire nervous system quietly started panicking. Then she asked it softly, carefully, almost like she was afraid the truth itself might break me.
Have you ever actually video talked properly?
Immediately, my stomach tightened, hard, like my body reacted before my brain could, defensive, instantly. Of course, he's overseas. The connection is terrible there. The words came out too fast, too rehearsed. Even I heard it. Melissa stayed quiet for a second, just watching me, and somehow that hurt more than judgment would have. Then softly,
I just don't want somebody hurting you.
and suddenly anger exploded inside my chest so fast it shocked even me, because lonely people protect hope aggressively, especially when hope is the only thing keeping them emotionally alive. Not everybody is a scammer, Melissa. Silence. The waitress appeared awkwardly with dessert menus nobody touched. I could feel my heart beat inside my throat. I hated that conversation, hated the tension, hated how shaky my own voice sounded, but mostly I hated the tiny, terrifying part of me that already knew she might be right. Driving home afterward, my hands shook on the steering wheel. Streetlights blurred across the windshield. My chest felt strange, heavy, like anxiety mixed with grief before grief even officially arrives. And my brain kept replaying tiny moments I had worked so hard not to examine too closely. The bad video calls, the dark screens, the connection problems, the sudden emergencies, the excuses. God, why did I ignore so much? Because I needed him. That's the truth, not financially, emotionally. I needed somebody to love me consistently enough to make the loneliness stop echoing so loudly inside my life. That night, I stared at Daniel's profile picture too long. Too long. Something suddenly felt strange. Not wrong exactly, just slippery, like emotionally trying to hold water in my hands. I zoomed into his face slowly, the smile, the eyes, the military uniform. This man knew my fears, my routines, my favorite tea, the story about my father, the way I couldn't sleep during thunderstorms. How could somebody know me so deeply and not be real? My chest physically hurt thinking it. I barely slept. Every hour I woke up checking my phone, checking his messages, rereading old conversations like maybe somewhere inside them I'd find proof that love existed after all. At 3:17 a.m., I listened to one of his old voice notes again,
I wish I was there beside you tonight.
and my eyes filled with tears instantly, because even then, even with fear growing inside me, my heart still wanted him to be real. That's the part people don't understand about emotional scams. You don't fall in love because you're stupid. You fall in love because emotionally the love feels real inside your body. The next morning, I reverse image searched his photo just to calm myself down, just to prove everybody wrong. That's all. My coffee sat untouched beside me while the page loaded slowly. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it. Then finally, another name appeared, another life, another man, a real retired military officer whose pictures had been stolen years ago. My body went completely cold. No, 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 no. There had to be a mistake. I clicked another link frantically, then another. Forums, warnings, women crying in comment sections. Same photos, same stories, same words. My breathing became shallow. Suddenly, the apartment felt horrifyingly silent, not peaceful, silent, abandoned silent. I remember looking around my kitchen like reality itself had changed shape. The coffee maker humming, morning light through the window, my purse hanging near the door. Everything looked normal, and somehow my whole life had just collapsed anyway. I called him immediately. No answer. Again, 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 straight to voicemail. My hands shook harder with every failed call. Finally, a message appeared.
Baby, please calm down. I can explain.
Baby. Suddenly, the word felt disgusting, artificial, cheap, scripted, like thousands of women before me had probably received that exact same message. I stared at the screen while my entire reality collapsed inside my chest. Months, months of emotions, hope, trust, love, future, every good morning text, every late night conversation, every fantasy about airports and reunions, and finally not being lonely anymore. Fake. Every single thing fake. And somehow the money barely even mattered in that moment. That's what people don't understand. The money was painful, but this was soul level humiliation because the real thing stolen from me wasn't dollars. It was emotional safety. It was hope. It was the version of myself that believed I was deeply loved again. I slid onto the kitchen floor, crying so hard I couldn't breathe properly. Not elegant crying, not movie crying, animal crying, the kind where your body physically folds under emotional pain. I pressed both hands against my chest because it genuinely felt like something inside me was dying. And maybe something was. The future I imagined, the man I imagined, the life I imagined. I remember whispering out loud through tears. How could I fall for this? Silence answered me. Then another whisper came softer, more broken. How could I be so stupid? And God, the shame after emotional betrayal is almost unbearable because suddenly every memory becomes poison. Every message feels humiliating. Every hopeful moment feels embarrassing. I thought about the nights I smiled reading his texts, the dresses I bought, the perfume, the way I blushed when my daughter asked if I was dating someone. I thought about how happy I felt hearing his voice, and somehow that hurt worst of all, because for a little while I was genuinely happy. For weeks afterward, I could barely look at myself in mirrors. Shame wrapped around my skin like smoke. I stopped wearing lipstick again, stopped playing music while cooking, stopped checking my phone. The apartment became quiet in the old painful way again. Except now, loneliness had humiliation sitting beside it too. Some nights I replayed everything obsessively. How did I miss the signs? How? Then, slowly, very slowly, another truth started appearing underneath the shame, painfully, quietly. I wasn't foolish because I wanted love. I was human, lonely, emotionally starving, and somebody studied that hunger professionally. That realization changed everything because suddenly I stopped seeing myself as pathetic and started seeing myself as vulnerable. There's a difference, a huge difference. Healing came quietly after that. Tiny things blocking the number, telling Melissa the truth while crying into my hands at her kitchen table, expecting judgment and receiving compassion instead, walking without checking my phone constantly, learning how silence sounded again without him inside it. Some night I still missed him, or maybe not him, the feeling, the version of myself who believed she was deeply loved again. That was the hardest part to let go of, not the scammer, the hope. Months later, I sat alone at a cafe watching couples quietly. A man brushed hair behind his wife's ear. Another couple laughed over coffee, and for the first time, I didn't feel bitterness, just understanding, because now I knew something painful and beautiful at the same time. The human heart will risk humiliation for connection almost every time, especially after years of emotional loneliness. My phone buzzed beside me. Spam message, unknown man. I smiled sadly and turned the screen face down, then looked out the window at the moving city lights. Still healing, still soft, still hopeful despite everything. And maybe that was the bravest part, not surviving the scam, remaining open-hearted afterward anyway.